Satish, turn on your camera.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Okay, I will move on to the session. Very good evening. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Kumaran and I am the Head of Computer Science and Engineering Department, Jaya Engineering College. We are highly privileged to host the Skillfest Webinar Series Season 4. On behalf of Jaya Group of Institutions, we welcome you all to this webinar on e-payment, a view of authorization, clearing and settlement. Today we are pleased to welcome our speaker, Mr. SADHEESH Radhakrishnan from WorldPay, and he is connecting from London, UK. We extend a warm welcome to you, SADHEESH. Before getting into the session, I request the participants to make a note of the following instruction. At the end of the session, I request every participant should submit the feedback form. We will provide the feedback form at the end. You can find the feedback form link on top of the chat box as a sticky note. I request every participants to click on the link and submit the feedback form, through which the ES certificate will be generated and reaches to your mail. You will receive the ES certificate within maximum of 2 days. Request everyone to submit the feedback form through which the certificate is generated. Some of your email ID with the college domain, the certificate may not reach you because they may have kind of filter in the domain server. So better you can use your personal email ID. So we will take care of each and every one of your grievances. If you have any inconvenience, please write to us through email or WhatsApp. The technology used here is purely rely on the strength of the local bandwidth. So if you have any audio or video issues, kindly click on the reconnect button. So it's placed on top of the screen. It's a red color button labeled as a reconnect. So don't leave the room, or do not close the window, or do not close the browser. So otherwise the connectivity to the webinar room will expire. So in that case, you have to re-register again and click the webinar link to connect with us. If there is any technical glitch in our side, we will back in 20 to 30 seconds. So do not leave the room or close the window. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please post all your questions in the chat box and select QA mode so that it's easy for us to identify the question. We will address all your questions at the end. So the recorded version of this webinar will be available in YouTube after 24 hours. You can watch the replay of videos of all our webinars through YouTube. So you can search by using the topic of the webinar. So with this note, now without further delay, we will turn the time over to the speaker. It's my honor and privilege to introduce Mr. SADHEESH RADHAKRISHNAN. SADHEESH is a highly self-motivated professional with around 15 years of experience in IT industry and 10 plus years in the payment industry, specializing in SMEs of payment card business analysis, software design, and the development lifecycle along with the testing and applications support consultation on client service delivery. A motivational and inspirational individual who thrives in a highly pressurized and challenging work environment. He is holding a Bachelor of Engineering in Electrical and Electronics Engineering from Madurai Kamraj University and a Master of Engineering in Computer Science and Engineering from Annamalai University. He started his career in teaching and worked around 1.5 years in an engineering college in Chennai. Then he moved to Satyam Computer Services and worked as a software developer for more than a year. Then he worked with TCS as a senior software developer. Then he moved to Visa, London. There he worked around 7 years and handled various roles such as project leader, application support manager, payment card expert, and solution architect. From there, he moved to MasterCard London. And currently he is with WorldPay as a migration test manager and a payment card SME as a consultant from his own company called S-Cube Solutions Limited for the past 5 years. Currently owning and leading a migration project of moving the merchants from Royal Bank of Scotland to WorldPay. This is a bigger migration project. In this, the system processes around 25 million transactions per day across UK and Europe. So with this brief introduction, so without wasting our time, we will move on to the session. I'm very glad to welcome Satish to present. Over to Satish.
Thank you, sir, for the warm introduction, and also good evening, everyone. So hope all you had a nice day. So yeah, let's straight away get into the session actually. So just to give a quick view on that today's session, it's mostly with the payments, and I'm not sure that how much you are comfortable with the payments, but I would like to still go ahead with by linking the day-to-day life with this session actually. So nowadays you might have been seeing that, okay, for everything that we are just using the card transactions instead of cash, which is for various reasons. And if you think that in everyone's perspective, some people prefer card transactions, some people prefer cash transactions still, but uh, but at the end of the day, when an end user perspective, that whoever making the transaction, which might be us, anyone near on, or someone who making the transactions, there is no loss to them. There might be benefits to them, but there is no loss to them. But actually behind this business, what is happening? Yeah, so that's a big $1 million question that many of you might not be aware of. So for example, you are making a card transaction. So please remember that I'm not talking about banking transactions here. We are talking purely about payment cards only. So anything through card transaction. Yeah, so which might be any type of transaction, whatever it is, but I'm just talking about the e-payments only here, which I will cover it later. So when you think in that perspective, so just to take a card transaction, we are going to a merchant, or you are going to Amazon online or Flipkart online, and you are buying a product. Yeah, so for example, 100 rupees product you are buying for 100 rupees, there is no loss to you. So there is nothing, you might be just getting your product in hand, but how this money will get moved into the other person, and what is happening on the back end, and how the physical movement of money is happening from your account to your another account, and how many $1 billion is playing around this business. So all these things that you are going to go through in this session. So So first, let's set up the objective very clearly for this session. So almost like I will cover around 45 to 50 minutes in the session, which will be more interacting. And I'm happy for you all to ask questions as well by linking with your day-to-day life. And I'm happy to answer all the questions. And if any questions are offline also, I'm happy to take it up. Yeah. Okay. So this particular session, which will be just when you think in an end user perspective, any transaction that you are making online, how it is going through, how it is getting settled, and what is happening again. So the first objective that we are setting is, okay, so point number one, this session will explain how an e-payment, a payment code transaction, gets authorized, cleared, and settled to a merchant. Yeah. So in the diagram that you are seeing a customer in the beginning. He's going to an online store and he's buying some products. Okay. And what is happening behind it is it's straight away connects to a gateway. Okay. What's a gateway? In simplest term, that okay, I can point you one example which you might have seen in your day-to-day life. Hope many of you might have used an IRCTC website for booking a railway ticket. So when you book that railway ticket, you might see that when you select your ticket and go to the next stage, you will see that, oh, which payment gateway that I want to choose. Okay, you might be seeing HDFC Bank, you might be seeing ICICI Bank, or you might be seeing some ZipPay or something like that, and you might be seeing that often it is changing as well. So over a periodic basis, they will be changing the payment gateways as well. Yeah. So it will connect, irrespective of that, it will connect to the gateway, and that gateway, it will connect to something called a payment processor. Yeah. Payment processor is, in simple term, it's a nothing else, it's a Visa or Mastercard or Amex. Yeah. In world, you might you can count the number of, I mean, you can finger count the number of payment processors in the world. Everyone know that the total master is Visa. Total, I mean, the second one is Mastercard, and the third is Amex, and couple of other things like JCB, Diners, Discover Diners, Discover and Diners now combined, so it's a Discover Diners, and there is some other called Laser, and all few handful of small schemes are there, which they are termed as payment processors. Yeah. Then that payment processor will connect to a bank where that particular cardholder's account is held, and they will direct the money and they will settle to the merchant. Yeah. So at the end of the day, when you start a transaction from a customer perspective, you are buying something, you are booking something through online, which is an e-payment, and the money gets deducted from your account and it's going to that merchant's account. That's the end point. Yeah. So that this session explains how it gets authorized, cleared, and settled to a merchant. Second one is, okay, this session will explain the process involves exchange of transaction data, how the transaction data is getting exchanged from the merchant to the bank that you actually have your account, where your card belongs to, and also how the money getting settled and balanced with the merchant from your bank to that merchant. That's a second objective. So the third objective that we are going is, this session will give various types of e-payments. What are the types in there? You might think that, okay, I'm going online, I'm booking. That's it. As an end user perspective, that's enough to know as well. But this, when you come into an IT or payment world, it is totally different. So what are the various type of e-payments and there? And I will touch a bit on that. What are the legal regulations behind that as well? A couple of points I will touch as well. Yeah. So, and also the next thing is, okay, this session will give a view on charges involved behind each transaction that we are making in our day-to-day daily life. Yeah. So this is actually, you might get surprised that, okay, is this that, okay, this much $1 million is getting turned around behind each and every transaction that we are making in our day-to-day life. It's not only that money movement, okay, how companies are making money and how big that money is just for making a transaction from the customers, and how this entire payment world is. So I'll be covering all this in the in this session. So more of like it is talkative. So I have just 12 to 13 slides only, not behind it, but each slide I will be covering a lot. So please note down your questions and put together. I'm happy to answer all those. I'm moving to the next slide now. So first one, so in this session, in this slide, what I'm going to cover is like, okay, how a typical e-payment model or how a typical e-transaction is going to be there, and what is the life cycle of that when you make a transaction. Okay, so it's nothing much difference from the previous slide, but I will be just going through much more details on it. Yeah. Okay, so you are a card holder, which is at the end of the, I mean, beginning of the slide and diagram. Okay, now I'm going to make a step one. You are logging into a site. Okay, assume that you are issuing, sorry, you are buying, going Flipkart and buying something. Okay, in this case, your merchant is Flipkart, nothing else. So step number one, you are buying something, you are going to your merchant, punching in your card details. You are buying, selecting a product, you are punching in your card details. Okay, automatically it will be connected to a merchant account gateway. Yeah, I have one slide to explain what is a payment merchant gateway means, so I will cover a lot on that, and what is that, how the, what are the types in there, all these things I will cover in the later slide. But in this slide perspective, let's know that what is the purpose of merchant gateway. So the merchant gateway is someone who acts as an intermediate between this merchant and the acquirer bank. Yeah, so this gateway, what is the purpose of that is they do have their own database to make initial steps and fraud checks. Okay, so for example, if you enter a simple card number wrong, straight away it will bounce back saying that please enter valid card number. Okay, assume that you are entering a correct card number. What is the next step that they will do is, their purpose is mainly to do the fraud checks. So each gateway have their own rules, so they might have their own uh, fraud connectivity checks and all those things. They might be connected to third party as well. So everything that they do at the end of the uh, flow, the expectation in the gateway is so simple as, okay, whether the transaction is genuine as per their knowledge or not. It doesn't mean that they have the rights to do full fraud checks. No, they have a level of checks of fraud checks which will be done at that stage, and then it will move to step number 3. Step number 3, it is called acquirer bank or processor. Okay, what is this is actually? This acquirer bank or processor means it varies across the territories. So the entire world in payment terminology, they are divided into 5 regions. US and Latin America is under uh, under region 1. US is under region 1, Latin America is under region 2, region 3 is Middle East, Europe, region 4 is Middle East and South Africa, CEMEA, which means Central Europe, Middle East and Africa, which is called CEMEA. And region 4 is Asia and Pacific. And region 5 belongs to again Australia. Yeah. So these are the regions which is in the total world, which has the payment. It's a payment sector, I could say. Yeah. So under these regions, each have their own regulations. Even though the transaction is worldwide, they have their own regulations in their region. Yeah. So this acquirer bank comes into the picture of each and every region. The legal regulations will differ, and so because of that, their own, even for example, India has their own acquiring concepts. So let's take that. Okay, you might be seeing that lots of acquirers as well as banks in that gateway, and even though you might be seeing that the banks, the back end, there might be an acquirer. Yeah. So acquirer is an important entity. In India, you might not see the acquirers much visible, and they will be a hidden business which will be there. But the gateways all connected to acquirers. But in many places in India, the banks are acting as acquirers as well on behalf of them, on behalf of uh, handling the transactions. And why it is it's a business. It's a making money, that I will explain that at the end. Yeah, why banks are acting as acquirers. So in India, as per the legal regulation, banks are allowed to act as acquirers, so they will do at the back end. But if you take about US or Europe or CEMEA, any other regions, no, banks are not allowed to act as acquirers. So acquirers are separate entity in order to minimize the risk of monopoly. Yeah. So if banks, they have their control, so they will do their, they do their have their concepts of separate world. So if they have the control of issuing and acquiring, they will make their own money. So that's a reason that that's been prevented in other regions. So mainly that if you take about European Parliament, they have their own defined set of instructions where the acquirers need to be a separate entity. Yeah. Okay, coming into card networks. All these acquiring processes are connected to card networks. So in world, if you think that, okay, there are total 6 or 7 schemes, nothing much, they are the card networks. And you might know that world's 70% transactions are Visa. It might be, any guesses on the number of transactions per day across world? It will be around 100 million around so far. I mean, as per the recent trends, it's around 100 million transactions per day in I mean the total world transactions, I mean. Yeah. So all this out of this all, so Visa is the major one, which is 65 to 70% of transactions happens across the world. Mastercard is the next one, which happens around 25 or more than that percentage of transaction. The next ones are Amex, Discover, JCB, Dynas, China Union Pay. They have their own system called Alipay and China Union Pay. So they have their own network. So I mean, their card transaction they won't send outside. So I mean, all these together, which will contribute around 5%. So this acquiring bank is connected to card networks, and the card networks are connected to issuing bank. So you might have a question that issuing bank is nothing else, whichever the bank that your card belongs to, the actual ATM card or purchase card or credit card, whatever you have, or a prepaid card or whatever your card. There are various types of cards, which will be the standard one is a classic debit card, and then I mean, you might see that purchase card, debit card, prepaid card, charge card, and partnership card, many cards that you have. So they all will be issued by issuing banks, which for example you are taking SBI, ICICI Bank, all these banks, they are all called as issuing banks. So all these banks, as per their legal regulation, they must have to be connected to the card networks which they issuing to. Yeah. So if they are issuing a Mastercard, they will have their card network enabled with the Mastercard server directly. And remember one point, that the entire world's Visa transactions are handled through only one server which sits in US. Even though you are making a transaction in Tinagar, Chennai, the transaction will hit immediately to I mean to US Foster City, and the response will come back from there only. So all these connectivities, Visa, there is only one server. There was 2 servers. Now Visa Europe has been demolished and been merged with Visa as Inc. So it's only one server which is handling the entire volume for Visa. For Mastercard, there are some 5-6 servers on a region base. It is there, but even though they are interlinked, for example, an Indian card being getting transacted in US, which will hit the US server, then it will hit the Asia server, and it will connect it to your machine within a second. Yeah. Okay. So this thing, once it hits the issuer bank will respond immediately in number 6 in this diagram, and it will go through the acquiring bank, and it will go through the gateway, and in the merchant side, and your cardholder will see a response, yes, your transaction is success. Yeah. So it's a simple process, but what is involved behind is a big thing actually. Yeah. So now coming into this picture, that okay, so hope everyone understand a typical model of the payment transaction and how it will be, and what is a transaction flow. And this is a typical diagram. I'm in the next slides, I will go through in detail on every stage, that what are the things that we need to consider and all those things. Yeah. Okay. Now coming into the next step, that I'm coming into the next slide. Okay. So before getting into that, what is the flow of how to say that, okay, a flow of authorization, clearing, and settlement, I would like to touch a glimpse on the types and classifications of e-payment transactions. Okay. First, before getting into that, why it is being categorized as e-payment is, I'm just touching about the online transactions only, which is through internet. I'm not touching the POS here, and I'm not, POS means point of sale, nothing other than that, POS. I'm not touching the ATM here. Yeah, even though it all involves through same network, POS, which means that you are buying something in and merchandise directly, is different than what you are buying in online. Yeah. So, and you are dropping a cash in ATM, which is a cash machine, which is different than what it is in e-com, which is called e-payment. Yeah, so I'm going to touch this in this session. I'm going to focus more only on the e-payment. Yeah, whenever we get chance, other thing we can touch ATM and we can touch the POS as well, which is a bigger world again. Yeah. Okay, so the types and classifications of the card, e-payment transaction, in the sense, majorly the transactions are categorized for legal purpose. It is been categorized as 5 different categories. One is business to business, a transaction between a business to business, which need to have different. It need to follow different legal categories. That's the reason it has been categorized. Consumer to business, a person who is paying, which is an online transaction, is generally a consumer to business, because you are buying something in an online platform, so that goes into consumer to business. The second is consumer to consumer. You might have not much exposed to gambling and all those things, or you might have not much exposed to the PayPal money movements and all. So there is something called you can transact from one customer to customer through card, actually. So where it happens mostly is, if you see that casinos, where the gambling world is there, so huge number of transaction will flow on that area, where one person will play game betting and they will lose it. The money movement from one person to another will happen. That's called consumer to consumer. The second is government to business. So government invests lots of money to other businesses. So there it's called government to business. And business to customer. This is, for example, you might seen that, okay, you are buying something and you are returning, you are getting a refund, which will be generally a business to consumer. Okay, the next one is business to administration, administration to, sorry, consumer to administration. They are not available across the world. It occurs, it available in Europe, not for other areas I'm aware of. So that's quite simple, that whenever a business or consumer went into administration categories and all, to detect the charges and all those things, there is a type of categories, but that's not much major to highlight here. Okay, so you might have got types of transactions here, and what are the classifications of the transactions now we are going to see. Yeah. Okay, the major transaction that you might use day to day is ATM or manual cash. So ATM is simple, you are going and dropping a cash, which is called as cash disbursement transaction, and you are going manual cash. Manual cash might not be available much in India, which I'm aware of, but in Europe territory, yes, it is there a lot. You might go to a shop and you can buy a product for £1, and then you can ask that, okay, I want a £10 cash back. So what they will do is they will charge £11 in your card and they will give you £10 cash. So this is an example, typical. This is called a manual cash. Okay, another one is online consumer purchase, which is a typically e-com transaction that we are going to cover a lot in this section. And another one is P2P, which is called person to person, which I already talked about, the gambling business, which is there, or it is kind of PayPal money movements, or transacting a money from one person to another with the help of card. Another one is account to account, which is again, it is a kind of cash movement transaction, which is called as quasi cash. So when a person wins in gambling, the gambling shop will pay to the customer, which is called A to A. And second one is global airline and BSP transactions, which is called international airline transactions. You might have a wonder that, okay, for example, I'm not sure that how many of you try to book airline transactions. It's quite different. So when you get into airline transactions, when you buy online, you might see that, okay, they will ask you either you pay the surcharge, or they will ask you which currency that you want to bill in. You can, every website, airline website, you can change your currency that you want to bill in. If you feel that you want to bill in euro, you can bill in euro. If you want to bill in INR, you can bill in INR, which is an Indian currency. So that, why that is, how it is, it's a major business. Airline itself, it's a major business. It comes under entire different category, which I will cover a little bit in the further slides. Yeah. So the next one is called refunds, reversals, chargebacks. Okay, simple, so simple as that. Okay, you got an item returned, so a company will pay you back, or you have an for example, you dropped you purchased something, but the money failed. Sorry, the transaction failed. Unfortunately, your money got deducted from your account. They will issue reversals. The company will issue reversals. Okay, that's called reversals. And chargebacks, nothing else. It's a dispute. For example, you bought item which you never got delivered. but no, it's not authorized, but your money has debited, you are going to a bank against it, and you are disputing them that no, I didn't get the money, so they will initiate a chargeback process. So these are the things that which will be covered in the these are the types of and classification of transactions that we need to go. I'm getting into the next one. Okay, now we are getting into the actual view of authorization, clearing, and settlement. Okay, how the payment processing works. Okay, I will start from number one, where a customer buys something to merchant. The merchant payment gateway is connected. It's connected to acquiring bank. Acquiring bank is connected to card network. Card network is connected to issuing bank, and issuing bank is deducting the money from, I mean, they are deducting the money from customer. That's the end point. Yeah. But at the same time, when they deduct the money, the acquiring bank is responding to merchant saying that your transaction is approved. So you do one thing, you issue the product. Okay. So this cycle, this is a simple cycle, but this involves three major process. Okay. The process name is called as authorization, clearing, and settlement. Yeah. So authorization is an approval from a card issuer, usually through card processor, to let the merchant know that the customer has sufficient funds to cover the cost of the transaction. That's it. It's an acknowledgement. Okay. The customer has the money in their account. I'm approving it. Done. Done. That's it. Done. The next one I'm coming into that is clearing. Okay. You got an approval, your product got delivered. How the actual money movement happens and how merchant gets the money. So the merchant has to initiate something called clearing. Until unless he initiate that, he won't get the money in his account. So clearing is a process of collecting a transaction from an acquirer in the merchant's currency by scheme, which is called payment processor, and delivering it to the issuer bank in the cardholder currency to the payment processor. Yeah. So it is like, okay, I have transacted something. So a clearing record is something like, okay, I want the money, like that the merchant will claim. So the merchant will start claiming that process, and it will go through the cycle that is called clearing. Yeah. So the next one is settlement. Settlement is a physical funds movement process between the customer's bank to the merchant account through the card network and the acquirer. That is called settlement. Okay. So you might have seen that, okay, sometime, okay, you might have purchased something. After 3 days only, the money will get deducted from your account. Nowadays, banks are quite clever. They will be just deducting immediately. But even though they are deducting, they can't physically deduct the money. They will put a flag on it, and they will just block the money when the authorization happens. But other than that, clearing and settlement, the timeline for that is 7 days. They have to go through, 7 days they have to just go through, the process. And once the 7 days process is gone through, the apologies, I'm getting some noise. Okay, fine, that's fine. So these three processes of acquiring, clearing, and settlement are the ones that we are going to cover in the next 3 sessions. Okay. Okay. So coming into the next slide, what is called a transaction authorization flow. Okay, this transaction authorization flow is the first step that we are going through in the 3-stage settlement process. Okay. So first step, which this diagram shows here, you can see that the same party model, but I put in a different way how the authorization flows. Okay. As I explained earlier, it's a simple approval. You might wonder that, okay, when you make a transaction or when you drop a cash, you might be getting in seconds time, not even minutes actually. Okay, you are buying something, within seconds it's happening. So you might wonder that, oh, within that second, is that flowing this fast to from this place to this place? Okay. First, a card holder is presenting a card to merchant, which is called e-commerce online. So authorization request is happening, which is number one. E-commerce is connecting to payment gateway, and if it's an airline transaction, it will go to airline BSP called IATA. Otherwise, it will directly connect to acquirer. Acquirer will connect to issue payment processor to check that okay whether this transaction is coming in, and issuer it will connect it to your bank, which is either any one of the bank that you have holding the card, you are holding the card, and that will come back within response, and you will see the final 10 number 10, which is 6 7 8 9 10. The authorization response will come. Okay, so as I explained already, so this authorization is an acknowledgement, and the time that you might have seen is when you drop a cash in ATM, or when you buy something in a merchant, or you buy something in online, this authorization must need to happen, and the transaction must need to flow through all the cycles for sure. You might have having an SBI card and you are buying something in your Amazon website, and in this case Amazon is the merchant e-com, the payment gateway is something, and acquirer is someone else, and your card might belongs to Visa, and an issuer is ICICI Bank. So all these places, within a fraction of second, the signal will flow through, and if the bank approves from the issuer side till the end, and when you get a response, then only your product will be with you. Otherwise, the transaction is called as declined. So that fraction of second, which the Visa server sits in US, the MasterCard sits in Europe or US, your transaction is flowing that fast, that fast. Remember that one server in the world which is handling all the transactions throughout the world and responding within fraction of seconds. So example, you are hitting something in Chennai, you are buying something, the payment gateway might sit somewhere in Europe or India somewhere, and that will connect to an acquirer bank in India, and that acquirer banks, it will connect to Visa, which is in Foster City, US, and then that will connect it to a issuer bank, which is an ICICI bank, sits in Chennai, and then it will directly respond immediately through all the flow back, and you are getting a response saying that okay, your transaction is approved. I believe definitely you'll wonder that okay, how this much fast it's happening. Yes, it is happening, and it is all the time, 24 hours online, 365 days. Okay, and if suppose the issuer bank is down, the payment processor has a rights to authorize on behalf of issuer. When the issuer and payment processor sign the deal, they will say that okay, if I'm down, you please approve on behalf of me. So some cases, yes, it is actually. So they only have the rights to approve on behalf of issuer and no one else. But for this, they do have lots and lots of things they do check on there. So in between doing this authorization flow, issuer bank will check your account, and if it has money, then only it will approve actually. Otherwise, they will never approve it. And another thing behind that is, before the transaction reaches that stage of issuer, payment gateway has their own fraud checks, acquirer do have their own fraud checks, and payment processor do have their own checks, and then only issuer bank will check the funds are available or not. So which is very very much key to consider, which is an important thing that we need to know as well. Okay, now I'm just covering the point from sixth point. So I think I covered till fifth point. So sorry, sixth point. Okay, when there is a response saying that it is failed, which means that the authorization is not done. Okay, first question, okay, is there any money movement during this authorization? If not, when it will happen? No, there is no money movement in this authorization at all. Purely it is a process of just the transaction authorization, and there will be never a money movement. Yeah, and once it's done, yes, merchant will have a hold, so they can give the product to you. No doubt on it. Okay, how can an authorization fail? What are the possibilities of failure? Yes, an authorization can fail due to invalid card numbers or incorrect details. Some places you might have seeing that the bank's asking, the merchant is asking your address details and all, because issuer need those address details for many of the validation. It depends upon the type of transactions and all. So those details will be captured and sent across all the places. So in that case, if there is a mismatch, yes, it will fail straight away. Yeah, you might have seen that in airline transaction, the name of the passenger should mostly match with the one of the travelers. So that's one of the check actually. So it's not mandatory nowadays, but it is mandatory for some merchants, some airlines and all. Okay, the next one is how airline authorization flow differs and why there is a need of difference. Yes, because in airline there is additional layer called airline BSP, which is an IATA, which is International Travel Agency, International Airline Travel Agency, which is called IATA, where every flight should have to be, every airline should have be part of that, and they do have the full control of airline transactions. So why there is a need of difference? Yes, because if there is no control of that, every airline can determine their own travel, I mean their own tickets. So they can just like that they can do, and a merchant can make money behind it. For example, you might be seeing that, okay, makemytrip.com. Okay, make my trip cannot fix any of the airline fare. They have to get through from the airline only. The reason behind that is the money that you are paying in makemytrip.com will never go to make my trip. It will go only to airline. Yeah, that I will cover in the settlement flow. So you might wonder that, okay, why there is such a system? Because to prevent frauds. Yeah. Okay. Then this is the purpose of airline. Duration of a single authorization. Can you guess? Yes, it is the whole world. It's handling, I mean, few authorization systems, less than 5-6 authorization systems, handling the entire world's traffic, and the response time is in seconds, and it's all mainframe. It's all handled in, I mean, as per my knowledge, none of the authorization systems are running through Java or any other application. It's all running through mainframe. In fact, that as IT person, we can say that, okay, no other systems can handle that much of traffic, and it's not a not a latest technology systems as well. In my view, visa authorization system, which is called VEAS, which sits in Fossa City, is running for around 40 plus years now, and it's a same mainframe system which is running 24/7, and it's just a mainframe which is handling the entire world's request, and the data transmission and everything. The latency is milliseconds. Yeah. Okay, and any idea how many authorizations can process through per day across the systems? Yeah, approximately 70, yes, 70 to 100 million visa authorizations, more than that maybe sometimes, and MasterCard is around 30 to 40 million, not beyond that, and all other systems are quite less. Yeah, so this many authorizations getting flown through these systems. Okay, now coming into the transaction clearing flow. Okay, as I highlighted that this is a second stage of the payment model. Okay, so the for e-commercial transactions, the transaction flow starts from payment gateways or BSPs. BSP is nothing about airline BSP, or it's a payment gateway. Okay, you have bought something in Amazon and you got a response, and your item is delivered to you, no doubt. And now how the actual clearing process starts. Authorization completed, a clearing stage started here. So who will be responsible for initiating the clearing stages? Either it is a payment gateway or it is an airline BSP. They too are the responsible persons for initiating it. If it's an airline transaction, BSP will initiate the transaction, and if it is a normal merchandise transaction, payment gateway will initiate the transaction. Number one, you can see airline e-com, non-airline e-com. So they both submit the transaction to acquirer party. Acquirer will format the transaction and send in the format where payment processor accepts. Acquirer have their own formats, but payment processor have their own defined transaction formats to receive. So all these are something called file formats only, nothing other than that. Visa still uses an ITF, international transaction format. They are sending it's a text file, nothing other than that. MasterCard uses an binary data format. Amex uses a text format only, nothing other than that. So similar to that, there are file formats where all the transactions will be clubbed from acquirer side and will be sent to payment processor. This will happen offline. Once the authorization is done, on the next day, within 24 hours, it will happen. For example, when you buy something today, so tonight the transaction initiation will go through acquirer and payment processor. Payment processor will process it overnight and send the transactions to issuer bank, which might be your bank, which might be an ICICI bank, which might be an SBI bank, or anything else other than that. It will just go through. I mean, the transaction will get delivered. Once the transaction gets delivered to the issuer, issuer will reflect that in your bank account statement as, okay, you bought from so and so merchant 100 rupees, I will direct the 100 rupees. Done. Okay. So sorry, apologies. I may use not the lakhs or crores terminologies because I'm used to this millions and 100,000s concepts. So it's quite tough for me to change to that terminology. So since I'm used to this, so that's why I'm talking the numbers in millions or 100,000s, nothing much. Okay, so this clearing, so if it is an airline, it will be initiated from BSP. If it is a normal transaction, it will be from payment gateway. And I can touch a little bit on the other one as well. If it is an ATM acquirer, which the machine, whoever belongs to ATM machine, that bank will initiate the transaction in symbol, nothing other than that. Yeah. Okay. Questions now. Issuer receive the transaction and notify the customer via bank statement. Is it immediate? No need to be, because during authorization, customer know that. So whenever the bank statement comes, it will be there. And can a clearing record gets rejected? And what are the possibilities of rejection? Yes. When an payment gateway or IATA send the transaction, they may pass some wrong details in that, which will be inputted from you on the merchant side, which can lead the acquirer or payment processor to reject the transaction. Issuer cannot reject the transaction because by the time it goes to issuer, the money will be deducted from him. So he cannot reject, but instead he has another option to claim the money back, which I will cover in the settlement. So transaction rejection can happen in acquirer, payment processor. In that case, if it rejects, your money will never get debited from issuer side, which will be there for 7 days. And then after that, after 7 days, your money will get credit back. Yep. Okay. Now, coming into the next question, what is the fraud checks in this flow and how strict the fraud checks are? Fraud checks are very, very strict in this actually. So payment gateway do a level of fraud checks, acquirer do a level of fraud checks, and payment processor do a full scrutinizing fraud checks in this case. So before it gets into the issuer, because issuer don't have the option to reject the transaction. So all these places the fraud checks will happen before it reaches to the issuer, and this is clearing flow. And this clearing flow, cardholder will never know that this is happening. This is a millions of transactions which will be processing through every day overnight. Yep. Okay. Is there any money movement happens during clearing? No. The answer is no. This is a merchant sending a clearing record, okay, to claim the money, nothing other than that. It is just to claim the money, to say, yes, okay, I want this money. That's a claim request, nothing other than that. Now I'm covering the next one, which is the final bit of this 3-stage process, which is transaction settlement flow. Okay. Now authorization happened, clearing happened. Now settlement, which actually comes in the physical money movement. Okay, the starting point of the settlement process is the customer. Customer in the sense, it is like, okay, customer won't initiate a settlement. Issuer will do on behalf of the customer and initiate the settlement. Even though the starting point is customer, issuer will initiate. Issuer is nothing else, your bank. Your bank will debit the money from your account and they will send it to Visa or MasterCard, and that money will go to acquirer. Once it reaches acquirer, here is the business beauty behind it. You might seen that authorization started from merchant and gone through payment gateway and went into acquirer all the route. Clearing started from payment gateway and airline, that okay, give me money. That is how it started. But you can see the actual money will never go to payment gateway or IATA or airlines. In case of in airlines, the money will never go to the merchant even. Okay, assume that. First, let's take 2 example. Amazon, you bought the product. Authorization went from Amazon to all the way. Clearing was started by payment gateway all the way. The settlement has been, so, okay, the better example I can take is IRCTC. IRCTC is a merchant. It's connected to HDFC Bank gateway, assume, and the transaction was from IRCTC. The clearing record initiated from HDFC Bank saying that, okay, give me the money. But the settlement will go back from 1, 2, 3, and 4th is directly to IRCTC. The payment gateway will never get the money. Merchant will get the money directly credited in his account from acquirer. In case of airline, assume that Make My Trip. Okay, Make My Trip, you initiated a transaction, sorry, authorization, you got the ticket, you booked through Make My Trip. And in this case, IATA initiated the transaction to get the money, but when the money comes back, it will be from acquirer, it directly credited to airline. For example, if you book ticket with some Air India, assume that you booked the ticket with Air India, then the money will go to Air India only, not to IATA or not to payment gateway or not to the Make My Trip even. Why it is for airline, they need to have a control over it. The reason behind that, why there is a need of control is, so what is the purpose of having that control is, otherwise airline will just shoot up the price. The merchants will shoot up the price, which means that, okay, what is, like for example, Make My Trip cannot set, okay, instead of 4,000 rupees transaction, they cannot set it up 5,000 because they won't get the money, even though they set it up, because the money will directly go to airlines. So airlines will come to know that they are trying to make some fraud. So they, as per world legal entity, IATA has set up the rules saying that any money movement will directly between the airlines, and how they will get the money, how this okay, then you can ask a question that how Make My Trip will make money. They will charge the commission from airline, saying that, okay, I made so and so transactions, you give me the commission. They will get the commission only, no physical money movement. So to any of the IATA or any of the e-commerce merchants which involves in the airline transaction. Yeah. Okay, so this is the final step of the transaction flow, and it stops here. Question now, you might have a doubt that, okay, I have did all this transaction and I got what I want. I bought 100 rupees product. I spent only 100 rupees, not even a single penny. Not even a single paise beyond that, but I got the product. Okay, this much big business is running behind, this many systems are running behind, and huge number of transactions are flowing. These are all owned by big $1 million companies. How they are making money behind this? Okay, how does the acquirer, issuer, and payment processor getting paid for this service? We are not paying to them, but we are using the full service and we are getting the benefit out of it. Then how that's been paid? So then, apologies, apologies. I believe that you all can hear me. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Thanks, sir.
yes.
Thanks, sir. Sorry, I got my connection got disturbed. Okay, now I'm back to this. Okay, how does an how acquirer, issuer, and payment processor gets paid? Okay, this is a big thing actually. You might wonder that, okay, how you are, how there is a money movement behind this, and you will wonder that, okay, is this much of profit every company is making behind each one of the transaction that we are making behind? Yes, it is. Okay, I picked a typical example. Okay, the first diagram I'm showing, a customer, he is buying for $100. Okay, he's buying the car. He has, his account will be debited with $100 only, nothing beyond that. So he bought a product of $100 and he got the product of he got only debited with $100. First question, the value of purchase is $100, that everyone is aware of now. And second one is, how much customer or cardholder gets debited? Yes, it's $100. Absolutely, customer said no impact. Done. How much merchant gets credited in his account? You might see only $98 gets credited in his account, but he gave you a product worth of $100. But he will, at the end of the day, he will get only $98. Okay, why does this $2 gets split up? That's the biggest thing. Okay, So in theory, card issuers take the 1.50, which is the major portion of the amount will be taken from card issuer. I mean, the out of the $2 that you have, majority, which is about 75% of that charge, will be taken by the card issuer, and the remaining 50 pence will be 50 cent will be shared between processor and acquirer bank. Processor is Visa and acquiring bank. In theory, sometimes they do have agreement between processor and acquirer bank. They will say that, okay, this type of transaction I will charge you, this kind of transaction I won't charge you. It's a deal between acquirer and processor bank. But who gets more paid is the card issuer. So merchant is losing $2 here, which will be shared between card issuer, acquirer, and processor bank. And out of that, maximum share goes to the card issuer. Now, you might understand the fact that always when you see that, your banks will say, yeah, do card transaction, we are giving offers, do card transaction, yeah, we are giving 10 rupees back, okay, do card transaction. Like that, you might be seeing that lot of promotions from the bank who issues the card to you, encouraging you to make the transactions through online or through cards. The purpose is they are making money. But if you are making a cash transaction, they will never make money, and the money that made by issuers is huge. So that's the reason that they are making. You might get a question as why issuers are making more money out of it. The reason is like, okay, they are taking the risk. For example, credit cards. Assume that many of the credit cards, they are just taking the risk and they are paying the cash from there. They don't know that at the end of the day, customer will pay for credit cards or not. So that's a place they will be taking the risk. So as per legal regulation, they are authorized to take more credibility. So they are taking the more profit. Acquiring bank and the processor, they are facilitating the transaction, they are getting less profit. So that's being getting shared between both of them, because they don't have any risk involved, that they are just facilitating the service only. Okay. So so what is the source of this £2? $2? You know that it is from the merchant. So merchant is in loss. Okay. So do you think that merchant is really in loss? No, actually. Even though it is an additional profit that he is losing, nothing other than that. Because when you sell a product for $100, the actual product might be $90 only. So he's getting $98. So the remaining $2 he is sharing with others in order to make the transaction in a trust, saying that, okay, because of the card issuer only, all these transactions are happening. So that is a trust that they have, and that's the reason merchant is sharing his profit. He's not on a loss. Sometimes you might have seen that. So there are two things here: the credit cards and the debit cards. Debit cards, there is always fixed charge. For example, like 150, even though you make $100 transaction, even though you make $10,000 transaction, it's a fixed fee. But if it's a credit card, it's not like that. It's a percentage fee. For example, 1%, sorry, 0.2%, like that, the percentage will be there, which will be shared by the parties. So that's the reason that if you go with the credit card, some shops will say, or some online will say, oh, minimum $10 I need to have, or minimum 500 rupees transaction only we will allow. Why it is because they need to have make the profit out of it. So that's the reason that they used to restrict like that. Okay. So hope this is clear. And okay, so simple. You might have, if you are quite clever enough, yes, you can make it. Okay, assume that 50 pence per transaction. If a processor acquiring bank is making, assume that 1 million transaction, how much money per day they will make it. So simple. And assume that 50 million transactions per day, how much money will be made by processor and acquiring bank? It is huge amount. You might never think that, oh, this much money will be made by the banks behind a single transaction that you are making. It's a big $1 million business. It's not about the money movement, it's about the money that they made out of it, which is simple. So one transaction 50 cents. Assume that, okay, let's make it as a $1. $1 million transaction, $1 million, or maybe $500,000. $500,000 per million. Make that, okay, assume that 50 million transactions. it's like 25 million per, I mean, just per charge behind, without doing anything, they will just make in hand. So simple as that, which is from merchants money, which is being shared by all these customers. Okay, now coming into next one, I'm just covering, this is going to be almost the last slide. I have only one slide more. I will cover this in 2 minutes. Okay, you might have seen that all e-com transaction, there is a payment gateway. How they will make money? You addressed that. Okay, okay, acquirers made money, issuers made money, merchant made money, and you can see that these are, payment processor also made money. How these payment gateways are, they are making money? It's so simple as that. They do have their own charging system. For example, okay, before that, I'll cover what is the purpose of payment gateway. Simple. It encrypts, forwards the authorized card payments data to the acquirer through a safe channel, and the routes are transactions and authorization. Okay. And what is the purpose of where payment gateway is used? Only for all e-payments, only it will be used, not for other payments. For example, ATM, point of sale for merchant, never there will be any of the payment gateway requirement is there. Only for e-com, there is a payment gateway requirement. And how does the payment gateways charge money, and from whom? So you might have seen that when you go there, okay, IRCT is the best example, you know that. Okay, they will say that HDFC Bank, okay, 1.5%. Then you might see that, okay, ICICI Bank 1%, like that. So they will make that money for transaction. They will charge their own way. And also sometime that you might be seeing that they will be putting offers and all. If you make through my way, okay, my payment gateway, you will get £100 discount, like that. So HDFC Bank will say, if you use HDFC Bank gateway, I will give you 5 rupees discount. So why it is? Okay, if they use their own gateway, there is no need of all this clearing process, and they no need to pay the money. All the money is for them. So in that case, so they always recommend to use their gateway. Yeah. Okay, so this is the purpose of the payment gateway, and they make their money in their own terminologies. And as per payment regulations, there is no way that they can, they can participate in the actual interchange money movement, which will be across the places. Yep. Okay. Now, I have a general question. Any idea which is the world's most leading payment gateway, and what is the specialty with two of them? You might surprise. Yes, PayPal is the most world's leading payment gateway. If you see that PayPal, many people will trust and blindly use it, which even one of the customer, I also blindly trust and use it. The reason is the dispute handling process. How it is PayPal as a gateway, they have their, beyond their trust, they do handling the disputes as well. They are dealing the merchants directly. If the product not get delivered, or any problem with the product, they directly debit the merchant, and they will honor the customer. So because of that, they are the world's leading payment gateway, and they have huge customers across the world, and most trustable gateway as well, which is PayPal. It's a $1 billion company that you might have been knowing about it. Okay. So almost I'm with the last slide. The last slide that I have is exceptions, chargebacks, refunds, and reversals. Okay. What will happen in case if a payment gateway failed to authorize but money debited from my account? Will the actual transaction happens behind? The answer is sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes it depends upon at which stage it fails. If authorization fails, literally the clearing process will never start. But even if it starts, the the authorization system is intelligent enough, it will send a reversal immediately on the back of it. So it will make a credit and it will make a debit immediately. So if authorization happens and a clearing is initiated, immediately there is a reversal will be issued by the system, and that will automatically go through. And if a refund, how are the refund and reversals? Reversals we covered. Refund is so simple. When you get a product, the company will initiate, the merchant will initiate a refund where the money will go in the other direction. Okay. What if there is a scam or something which happens? for example, online I'm buying something and e-com transaction and there is a fraud. Somebody did the fraud. So simple. Every payment channel is protected with the chargebacks. So when you complain to an issuer, they will initiate a chargeback, which will go through the flow, which is shown in the diagram, which is a chargeback cycle. It will go other way around, and the money will debited from the merchant, and it will be put back into our account through the other way around. So Visa and Mastercard have their own chargeback disputing system. They will handle that all very cleverly. And how does the issuer trust the acquirer? And is there any direct communication between issuer and acquirer? Very importantly, even if it is an HDFC Bank is an issuer and the ICICI Bank is an acquirer, they are never authorized to communicate directly without Visa and Mastercard interaction. That is very much illegal. So they are never authorized to communicate directly, but they do have their own dispute channels enabled with them. So in that case, they will be handling it perfectly, and they will have their own systems to handle all this purpose, and the disputes and the chargebacks will be handled through them. Yeah, I know I'm taking over time, so beyond an hour. So I'm completing this chargeback session. I have a lot to cover on the chargebacks. It's a big process. Even chargebacks we can talk for an hour. But yeah, I'm just stopping the chargebacks at this stage. Final touch to slide. How is Apple Pay, GPay, Samsung ePay, Samsung Pay, which is participating in e-commerce, which is the latest trending that you might know that. So Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, GPay, you might see that for buying in POS sale, yes, they use the car, I mean NFC, and they make it, but you can use that for e-commerce as well. Okay, but how they will make the money? You might have never seen them in that picture, but instead of issuer, you are using this. They act as a issuer in theory, but they will work behind the issuer. How they will make the money is they will make deals with the issuers and say that, okay, I am acting on behalf of you, so you need to pay a commission to me. So that's how these companies will make money from issuers. So first you have seen that $1.5 which is been debited from the issuer, which will be I mean that 1.550 they will get the share if they use the Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, or Google Pay. And why? What are the benefits? Sorry, what are the benefits to Apple, Samsung, and Google behind the dollar that behind the scene that you know that entire world IT organizations are running behind big data, which is going to be a biggest threat maybe in 10 years later time. So big data is the biggest thing that we need to mindful about. So yes, all our data is been it's been taken by the, I mean, it's been taken by, sorry, the presentation is gone. Yeah, so all our data being taken by these companies, they will use it for their benefit. So in theory, yes, you know that Google, which tracks wherever you goes, and Apple, okay, wherever you buy. So tomorrow, maybe after 2 years, they might say that a person X, he will wake up at this morning, he will go and buy here, he will spend here, all this info. It's all big data. The world is behind big data. All these companies gather the data behind of your transaction, where you are buying, what you are buying. All these things will be, all these things they are storing it. So simple as that. So they will be using it for their benefits too. I mean, they will be working for next 10 years where the IT industry will be and how to control the world. There is a competition on big IT customers, sorry, IT I mean giants. So yeah, who gets more data? That's a business. So out of that, this is one as well. But how it's benefit to customer and card holder? So easy. No need to carry the card. You can use your phone for purchase, and you have added security layers. And the main thing behind this, when you use Apple Pay or Samsung Pay or Google Pay, the merchant will never come to know about your card number. Yeah, so your card number is encrypted behind it, and then virtual card number will come in these devices, which merchant cannot use it without this device at all. So there is no possibility for I mean frauds when you use these kind of systems. So that's the reason that they are in the business. And but behind that, they will make their own money. They will make, they get their own benefit. Customer will get their own benefit. So all of this, they are, it's a mutual thing, but they will be working for future. That's it in their IT perspective. So yes, even this Samsung Pay, Apple Pay, Google Pay, yes, again we can talk for 1 hour. There is not much beyond that. So but I would like to wind up quickly because it's running over time. Last one now, questions session. please.
Thank you, Sadish. We will go ahead and take some time for question now.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, please be sure to type your questions into the chat box. It looks like we have a few questions. A question, what's the use of CVC number? Who checks? It's a
Yes.
question asked by Ramandas.
Yeah, no problem. CVV is called card verification value. It's so simple as that. So to say, when a code authorization happens, the first check that they do is a CVV check, which will be happening on issuer side and visa side. So at the end, when the CVV transfers from acquirer, from merchant to acquirer to visa, and then to the issuer holds that CVV information in their side, and they have something called 3D secure or called Mastercard secure. So Mastercard uses a new concept called Mastercard secure code. So Visa uses something called 3D secure. So that is the purpose of CVV, and that's part of one of the fraud checks that they do in their system before the transaction gets authorized. And to be frank, that is a very first step. That which will be validated by the issuer before they do additional checks.
Okay, so it's another
Hope that
question
answers.
from yes. It's another question from Sundaravali. Is there any network issue may cause error in the process?
Correct. So that's a reason. So there is a problem can happen actually. So in theory, literally, it happened a couple of times. So like last year there is one incident happened in Visa that none of the transactions are getting authorized, but it can happen. But the thing is, most of the it's very rare. I could say that between 2010 and now when I worked in Visa, so 2 times it happened. That's it between last 10 years I could say, and one it happened at the Boxing Day, which was a peak in 2010, and one it happened recently. So it's very less, but it can happen on the issuer side because this payment processor side it is very strong, but it's very less. But when it happens on the issuer side, there is a possibility, yes, but in those kind of times, issuer is capable enough to stand on behalf of acquirer and approve the transaction. Not issuer, payment processor will stand. For example, if it's a Visa card, based on the history of the transaction they have and based on the history of authorization they had in that card and all, they do have number of almost around 52,000 business rules are there in the system, authorization system, which they will validate it, and based on that they will approve the transaction if there is such a network failures and all. Yeah.
There's a question from Mr. Murugesan. Why merchant charging card charges?
Merchant is making the card charges, which is the interchange concept that I said. When I take £100, he gets 98 pounds. Okay. So some merchants what they will do cleverly is they don't want to lose the $2. What they will do is instead of that, they will say, 2% charge. So what they will do is the actual product is 100, they will get 102. So in theory, at the end of the day, when issuer and acquirer deducts the money, ₹2 from them or $2 from them, at the end they will get the 100 in their hand. So they are charging that $2 from the customer and sharing with the acquirers and issuer. It's a way of clever business, nothing other than that.
Yeah. Who is the world leading payment processor in terms of the number of cardholders and the number of transactions?
Number of transaction wise, Visa card holders, it should be Visa definitely, because Visa almost like 100 million transactions per day across world, which is 100 million is, I believe it's 1 crore. I don't know the Indian conversion, sorry, forgot a bit. So 30 million transaction happening for Mastercard almost, and Amex, JCB and all, it will be less than in thousands only, not beyond even a million or anything. Yeah.
So another question, how the security part is handled in each process?
It's all high secured things actually. So I could say that all these payment gateways, they have their own security, and the line that which is being handled through this are base 24 switches. So you might have heard that when whoever know about mainframe, they know a bit on the base 24, where these transactions are being authorized via base 24, and every application layer have their own dedicated line. They have their own channels actually. So if you think that Visa have their dedicated endpoint access to every bank across the world, which means that if they are issuer, for example, if you take ICICI Bank, ICICI Bank will transfer the clearing record directly to Visa, not through internet. They have their own dedicated endpoint access. So they have their dedicated channel. The moment that the file is placed in ICICI Bank, within a second that will be mapped directly to Visa and the file will be collected in Visa, which sits in Foster City, US. So they have their own dedicated lines. The security is, I mean, they have their own standards completely, and lots of confidential behind that, how the security is being handled. And in fact, in theory, you have lots of backup sites are there, which will be never disclosed to even the people that who work there. So for example, that one of the office that I worked in Visa, so if you put the postcode in Google, it will show different location. That's for even the purpose is like security. Even the physical office, it will be hidden in many places, because that too purposefully, when the server locations and all, completely it's in remote, and it's a fully, hidden locations only.
This is a question from Tri Venkatasamy. GPay, Apple, and Samsung gateways are safest to use.
It's the safest across. It's the most safest than any other payment gateways to use. So actually they are not gateways, actually they are actually issuer products only, nothing other than that. So what they do is, when you have a card number 4659 something, like 16-digit card number, when you punch them directly to the website, merchant know that card number, and they can make fraud as well. They won't do generally, but if they think, they can do, because they do capture your card information and CVV. But when you go into Apple Pay, GPay, Google Pay, when you register your card to your device, a dummy number will be generated, and that dummy number can be used only from that device and nowhere else. So that dummy number, only merchant knows that. When merchant send that dummy number to the acquirer, and acquirer sends that to Visa, Visa have their high scaled system, which is designed in IIB, which will flow through millions of records in fraction of second. They will find the actual original card number that this transaction belongs to. They will map it to the original card number of yours, and then they will route it to your bank directly. So that part Visa will handle it, and they will maintain it. And your issuers also know that, they know that, okay, this is from Apple Pay transaction, or this is from GPay. So I could say that in ecom, if you use that, in my view, yes, it is the safest, because they use the dummy number, not the original number.
Okay. So it looks like we have covered all of our questions. There's a small question from my end. The audience, the participants are very curious to know the things. How is Corona issues in London? Because you're connecting from London. Just I
No, it's a
we
huge
wanted to
here.
know.
It's a huge here actually. The impact is
Okay.
quite huge. Almost like we haven't gone out of the house for almost. It's been some 75 to 80 days now. So yeah, to be frank, I went out only 2 times. That too after 65 days. One day I opened door and went out, and that too because my car is there, not started for 65 days. So I went 5-10 miles and came back. Nothing beyond that. So but people are quite responsible, I could say. The reason behind that is the government is supporting a lot. For example, those who are not having job, they are paying for 3 months. Uh, Payment, government is paying the 80% of salary for those who are furloughed, for without job. So because of that, people are, quite responsible. That is one of the things that we need to consider. But other thing is like hospital facilities. Yes, it's quite quite low in the sense, it's not low. There is no space to accommodate and all. So yes, everyone, we don't know the actual count, but they are saying that, okay, okay, this is the count, that's it. But the process is quite slow earlier, but now it's fast. Now every individual who has the, every individual who is getting the symptoms are getting the opportunity to test it. But earlier it was not. Now Even if you have symptom, you are okay to test it, because they are making 100,000 tests per day, which you can directly go in car and make a drive-in test. So that opportunity has been enabled now, but it's quite bad. But nobody's leaving out, being at home, and washing hands. I mean, like 25 to 50 times a day, which is main important thing that the government has advised to everyone. But important thing is people are quite following and not coming out. But now they relaxed the rules. The death counts are quite reduced as well, which was 1,000, around 1,000 per day earlier. Now it is around, because you know that the total UK is around Tamil Nadu size only, nothing beyond that. It's and the total 66 million people, which is around Tamil Nadu's strength only, nothing beyond. In that, actually, we had around 40,000 deaths here, which is quite high actually. But yeah, many of the deaths are elderly people. It washed out a bit, but still, young age also it's there. It's going on, so hopefully we are thinking that in another 2 months of time it will get okay. And I do personally trust the Oxford vaccine a lot actually. So the Oxford vaccine, I tried to register for a volunteer to go for the test actually, but they opened the volunteer slot, and within 5 minutes full slot is full. They opted 10,000 people for slot testing. So, but that have a hope that it will come out, and they are saying that they can produce 400 million dosages by September if it works. So let's, fingers crossed. So let's hope that that will work and everybody will get vaccine, and let's say stay safe. That's key.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you,
And
Sadhish, for your yes.
thanks for the wonderful opportunity, sir, and thanks
Okay.
participants. Thanks
Uh,
participants for listening. So anything, any feedback or anything that if you have questions, please post me. Happy to answer your questions. And also important is, yes, feedback. Yes, please post in the form, which sir can, Kumaran sir can come to know about that as well. Yes, meet you if there is any options to meet again.
okay.
Thank you
Okay,
so
thank
much.
you, Satish. Yeah, thank you for your detailed explanation for all our questions.
Yeah.
Now it's time to conclude our event. Thank you very much, Satish, for spending your valuable time with us in your busy schedule. I hope everyone enjoyed the session. Now, all the participants have a good understanding about how the online payment processing happen. Now you can map how each every transactions to be processed. What are the technologies and the other the process behind that. Thank you very much for a very informative session. On behalf of Jaya Group of Institutions and all participants, once again, thank you, Satish.
Yeah,
At this
thanks.
juncture, I place my sincere thanks to my college management and my colleagues who rendered their support for conducting this webinar series. Uh, Great, thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being there. And next schedule tomorrow we have at 6 p.m. The topic is modern application development using agile approach by Mr. Guru Sharan from Athena Health Technologies Private Limited. I request you all to connect at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you all for your active participation. I kindly thank all the people who are responsible for the success of this event. Thanks again for joining us today, and we will see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, Satish.
Thanks, sir. See you then.